When we continue, an eccentric English inventor creates a bizarre flying machine and amazes moviegoers like never before. Two hours north of London, in a rolling green field just outside his country manor, 85-year-old Ken Wallis prepares to defy gravity. The retired British aviator and inventor is at the controls of his most famous creation. Though it looks like a helicopter, it's actually called an autogyro and flies like an airplane. Its rear rotor creates the thrust needed to stay aloft.
I used to ride motorbikes at Full Norton lots of times. I love speedboat racing. I've loved flying and aeroplanes, but I love these things more than any other because there's no such precise way of going flying that I know, and you get the feeling of flying, especially when you're up in the open, you can feel the wind and so on. It really is, in my opinion, the best way of all to go flying.
In 1967, Wallis flew an autogyro named Little Nellie in the James Bond film You Only Live Twice. The gadget was a flying fantasy. It wowed audiences and made Wallis and Little Nellie famous throughout the world.
It's entirely chance the way it came about. Little Nellie was the chorus girl that became the star.
Since 1961, Wallis has built 19 autogyros, each with their own strength and flight characteristics.
Well, we're in the politely called hangar, where I have 19 autogyros of my design, of which 18 would literally fire up and fly straight away, including, of course, Little Nellie.
How an autogyro flies is based on simple science. Wallis describes it as two sycamore seeds working in unison to stay aloft.
We all know that a sycamore seed is a little winged seed, and when it falls from the tree, it whirls around and it falls much more slowly than if it didn't have that little wing on. Now, the autogyro I'm flying is in effect like a pair of sycamore seeds joined together at the root. When you have an engine and a propeller and push it along, if you set the angle of the rotors so that they're tilted up at the front, you can actually stay up and climb. It's quite an incredible thing that it works as well as it does, and it feels so right when you're flying it.
Wallis has invented all kinds of gadgets in the past 50 years, but it is the autogyro that brings him the most joy.
I first flew my own design entirely in 1961, and I've got a heck of a lot of confidence in them since then. All the machines in my shed are basically the same design, but they're quite different in nature because of the nature of the engine that's used. Some are two-seaters, some are single-seaters. There's one fully enclosed single-seater with a 130 horsepower Rolls-Royce engine, but I must confess I like the open ones rather than the fully enclosed ones.
He says the aircraft is the ultimate spy toy because it is small, lightweight, relatively quiet, and can fly over an enemy undetected.
If you need a helicopter, you've got to have a helicopter. But if you want to fly low and slow and not disturb the ground, or you can fly very low over crops, searching for people and that sort of thing, and not do a scrap of damage below.
Though autogyros are lightweight and small compared to conventional aircraft, Wallis said they're very safe. In the 40 years Wallis has been flying autogyros, he's had only a handful of engine problems, because the aircraft always flies in auto-rotation, the same dynamic used by helicopter pilots if their engines fail. Wallis has always landed safely.
I think it's one of the safest aircraft there should be to fly, actually. I completely believe in them, which is why I've spent so many years on them and so many variations. I fly them at night. I fly them with infrared line scan on board, transmitting to the ground all the time in military trials and exercises. All weather, has a landing light on it, land it with its own landing light at night. And of course it can taxi on the ground, taxi through the woods into a critical point or something, whereas a helicopter has to stand outside the woods. So it's a thoroughly practical aircraft.
Little Nellie, Wallis's most famous autogyro, has done duty in films and television shows. To make the aircraft more menacing, movie makers have outfitted Little Nellie with a battery of rockets and machine guns, some of which actually fire. And though Wallis is proud of his autogyro's work in the entertainment field, its true accomplishments came closer to the spy game. The British military and several police agencies have put a Wallis autogyro to good use, either spying on enemy troops or helping solve crimes.
This one is a prototype I made with a fully enclosed cockpit shape. It has a 130 horsepower Rolls-Royce Aero engine in it. It's the second prototype engine that they made. But it also has a pack of 4 aerial cameras. And they were first of all used for coastal ecology research, but then that led to the detection of buried bodies as of murder victims for the police. I did over 350 flights on test work detecting where bodies were buried.
Besides finding bodies, the British military has used an autogyro in the skies over Europe to assist in everything from troop reconnaissance to NATO training exercises.
It was all very real, and in fact the sister of Little Nellie has been updated and back in military colours, and she's taken part in aerial quick deployment exercises and out in NATO bases in Bavaria and the Lake Constance battle area. So Little Nellie may have been a gimmick for the film, but she's also for real.